The invitation arrived at my office in March. Riverside High School cordially invites Dr. Sarah Mitchell to deliver the commencement address at our graduation ceremony, June 10th. I accepted immediately. Speaking to graduates was something I did several times a year, sharing my journey from small-town girl to CEO of a clean energy company that had gone public the previous year. Forbes had listed me in their self-made women issue, but to my family, I was just Sarah, the sister who did something with solar panels. My sister Angela knew her son Kevin was graduating from Riverside. She'd mentioned it at Easter. I listened, said congratulations, and didn't mention that I'd be speaking at his graduation. The week before the ceremony, Angela called. "Are you planning to come to Kevin's graduation?" I was thinking about it. Kevin's really self-conscious. With all his friends and their families there, I think it might be better if you didn't come. I set down my pen. "You don't want me at your son's graduation. You tend to stand out. Your clothes, your hair. Kevin's worried people will ask questions. It's his day." "My clothes?" I looked down at my tailored suit. "You're different, and that's fine for your life, but this is Kevin's moment. Can you just skip this one?" I thought about the speech I'd been working on, about the program listing me as the keynote speaker. "I'll stay away from the ceremony," I said finally. "Thank you." Angela sounded relieved. The morning of June 10th, I dressed carefully, a conservative navy suit, my speech notes tucked in my bag. I drove to Riverside High School. The parking lot was filling with families. I pulled into a spot near the back. My phone showed 8:45. The ceremony started at 9, and I needed to be backstage by 8:50. I was reaching for my door when someone tapped on my window. Angela stood there, her face twisted with anger. I rolled down the window. "Angela, what are you doing here? I told you not to come." "I'm just sitting in my car." "You need to leave before Kevin sees you." "I'm parked legally." Her face flushed. "Stay in the car where no one can see you. We don't want people knowing you're related to us. This is Kevin's day, and I will not have you ruining it." She positioned herself in front of my car door. "If you try to go inside, I'll make a scene. Stay in this car, Sarah." She walked away. I watched her disappear into the building. I sat in my car, my speech notes in my lap, and waited. At 8:52, I got out and walked to the back entrance where faculty parking was located. Principal Harris was waiting. "Dr. Mitchell." I was starting to worry. "Sorry, I got held up." He led me to the staging area. The valedictorian Emma smiled at me. "I'm so excited you're here. I read your book for my economics class." "Thank you. That means a lot." Principal Harris checked his watch. 5 minutes. You'll be introduced right after the student addresses." The ceremony began. National anthem, welcome remarks, recognition of honor students. I watched Kevin walk across the stage for an academic achievement award. Then Principal Harris walked to the podium. "Before we continue with diploma presentations, we have a special treat. This year's commencement address will be delivered by someone whose story embodies everything we hope our graduates will achieve. She grew up in a small town not unlike ours, facing limited resources and even more limited expectations. She was told that girls, especially those from working-class families, should set realistic goals. I could see audience members leaning forward, programs rustling as they checked the name. Instead, she earned her doctorate in engineering from MIT. She founded a clean energy company that now employs over 2,000 people and has revolutionized how we think about sustainable power. Her company went public last year with a valuation of $3.7 billion. She's been featured in Forbes, Fortune, and the Wall Street Journal. And perhaps most importantly, she's established scholarship funds that have sent over 300 low-income students to college. Through the gap in the curtain, I could see Angela. She was looking at her program, frowning, mouthing something to her husband. I couldn't see her face clearly, but I knew the exact moment she understood. Her whole body went rigid. "Please welcome Dr. Sarah Mitchell, CEO of Solar Bright Technologies." I walked onto the stage. The applause was loud and genuine. I looked out at the sea of faces, found Angela in the 4th row, and watched her sink lower in her seat. "Thank you, Principal Harris, and thank you to the graduating class of Riverside High. I'm honored to be here today." My speech was one I'd given variations of before, but I tailored it specifically for this moment. I talked about being underestimated, about family members who couldn't see past their own narrow definitions of success, and about the power of education to open doors that others insisted didn't exist for people like us. Some of you have families who believe in you unconditionally, I said, looking out at the audience. Cherish that. Some of you have families who love you but can't understand your dreams. That's harder. And some of you have family members who actively try to diminish you, who tell you you're not good enough, who are embarrassed by your ambitions or your differences. Kevin was sitting in the front row with other award recipients. He was staring at me with wide eyes, clearly recognizing me but not understanding. To those students, I want you to know something important. Your worth is not determined by whether your family can recognize it. Your potential is not limited by their imagination, and their embarrassment says everything about their limitations and nothing about yours. I spoke for 12 minutes about sustainable energy and climate change, yes, but mostly about resilience. About building a life that reflects your values rather than others' expectations. About the particular freedom that comes from success earned entirely on your own terms. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. Students were on their feet. Faculty members clapped enthusiastically. Emma, the valedictorian, had tears in her eyes. I returned to my seat on the stage as the diploma ceremony began. From there, I had a perfect view of Angela. She wasn't clapping. She was staring at her program, her face pale, while the woman next to her whispered something and gestured toward me. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the courtyard. I was immediately surrounded by students asking questions, parents thanking me, and faculty members wanting to discuss the scholarship fund. Principal Harris brought over several seniors interested in engineering programs. A woman approached, extending her hand. Dr. Mitchell, I'm Janet Lawson. My daughter Amy is in Kevin's class. I just wanted to say your speech was remarkable. The part about family who can't see your value really resonated. I hope that wasn't too personal a topic. Sometimes personal experiences make the best teaching moments, I said carefully. Kevin appeared in the crowd, still in his cap and gown, looking confused and awestruck. Aunt Sarah? Hi, Kevin. Congratulations on graduating. You're the commencement speaker? You're a CEO. I didn't know. Mom said you did something with solar panels, but she made it sound like you installed them or something. I do work with solar panels, just in a different capacity than she realized. Your company is worth billions? He looked at his program again, reading my bio. You went to MIT? You've written books? 2 books, one on renewable energy policy, one on business sustainability. Why didn't you ever tell us? I did. Your mother wasn't interested in the details. Angela appeared then, her face tight with anger and humiliation. Kevin, we need to go take pictures with your grandparents. Mom, did you know Aunt Sarah was speaking today? We need to go, now. Did you know she's famous? There are people here who want her autograph. She's been on TV. Kevin. Angela's voice was sharp. He looked between us, and I could see him piecing it together. The parking lot where I'd been sitting in my car, his mother's insistence that I not come, the speech I'd just given about families who try to diminish you. You told her not to come, he said slowly. You told her she'd embarrass us. That's between me and your aunt. You told your own sister not to come to my graduation because you were embarrassed by her. And the whole time, she was the keynote speaker. Kevin's voice was rising. Do you know how many people came up to me just now asking if I knew her? Telling me how lucky I am to have someone like her in my family? Kevin, you don't understand. I understand that you lied to me about who she is. You made her sound like a loser when she's actually accomplished more than anyone else in our entire family. Angela's face was red. People were starting to watch. She grabbed Kevin's arm. We're leaving. I want to talk to Aunt Sarah. Now, Kevin. They left, Angela practically dragging her son toward the parking lot. I watched them go, feeling the familiar ache of family dysfunction mixed with something new, vindication. Principal Harris appeared at my elbow. I hope this wasn't too awkward. Your assistant mentioned you had family here, but I didn't realize the relationship was complicated. Most relationships are in some way. Well, your speech was exactly what these students needed to hear. We've already had 6 parents ask about your scholarship program, and I have a stack of business cards from people wanting to discuss potential partnerships. I stayed for another hour, talking to students and faculty, avoiding the area where I'd seen Angela and her husband. When I finally left, the parking lot was nearly empty. My car sat where I'd left it, in the same spot where Angela had told me to stay hidden. I drove home thinking about shame, about how Angela had wanted me invisible, tucked away where no one could see me or ask questions, about how she built a story about her family that didn't include space for a sister who'd succeeded in ways she didn't understand or value. My success had always been an inconvenience to Angela. It didn't fit the narrative she preferred, where she was the accomplished one, and I was the struggling younger sister who needed guidance. Seeing me on that stage, hearing my credentials read aloud, watching hundreds of people applaud me, it had shattered the comfortable story she'd been telling herself and everyone else for years. That evening, Kevin called me. His number appeared on my phone, and I almost didn't answer. Aunt Sarah, it's Kevin. I got your number from Grandma. Hi, Kevin. I wanted to apologize for my mom, for not knowing about your work, for everything. Your speech was incredible. Everyone's talking about it. You don't need to apologize for your mother's choices. She's refusing to talk about it. They tried to bring it up, and she left the room. But I read about you online tonight. Like everything. Articles, interviews, your company's website. You're amazing, and I never knew. Your mom and I have different ideas about success. She told people you weren't coming because you were too busy. After the ceremony, people kept asking why she hadn't mentioned her sister was the speaker. She looked like she wanted to disappear. I felt a twinge of sympathy for Angela, then remembered her face at my car window. Stay where no one can see you. Kevin, can I give you some advice? Yeah. Don't let anyone else define your path, not your parents, not your friends, not society's expectations. Figure out what matters to you and build toward that. The opinions of people who can't see your value, even people who love you, don't determine your worth. That's basically what you said in your speech. It's something I learned the hard way. Can I ask you something? Did my mom really not know you were speaking? She knew I worked in renewable energy. She chose not to ask for details. Because she was embarrassed by you. Because she couldn't imagine that her weird little sister might have built something worth acknowledging. Kevin was quiet for a moment. I'm proud to be related to you. I know that's weird to say since I barely know you, but I am. And I'm sorry we didn't stay in better touch. That's not your fault. You were a kid. I'm not anymore. I'm starting at State in the fall, engineering program. Maybe I could email you sometimes. Ask questions about the industry? I'd like that very much. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights. My phone buzzed with emails from Riverside students, connection requests from parents, and one message from Principal Harris thanking me again and asking if I consider establishing an annual scholarship specifically for Riverside graduates. Nothing from Angela. 3 days later, a card arrived in the mail. Angela's handwriting, careful and controlled. Sarah, I need you to understand that I was trying to protect Kevin. You've always been different, and I worried that having you there would create complications. I didn't know about your professional success because you never told us. How was I supposed to know? You can't blame me for not asking about something I didn't know existed. I hope we can move past this. You're still family. I read it twice, then put it in my desk drawer. It wasn't an apology. It was a justification, a way of rewriting history to make her the reasonable one and me the secretive sister who'd withheld information. But Kevin had my number now, and he'd called, and he'd used the words "I'm proud to be related to you." That was something Angela had never said, probably never would say, and I was learning slowly that you don't need validation from people who've proven they can't see you clearly. The shame Angela tried to hide in that parking lot had ended up exactly where she feared it would, on full display, but directed at her, not me. Sometimes that's how it works. The person trying to hide you ends up revealing far more about themselves than they ever wanted anyone to see. For 15 years, I'd worked in public education. I started as a classroom teacher and later moved into administration. 3 years ago, I was promoted to district supervisor of academic programs for the county school system. I oversaw 42 schools, managed a department of 17 people, and earned a salary that would have surprised my family if they'd ever asked. They never asked. My sister Patricia knew I worked in education and assumed that meant teacher's aide or secretary. I'd stopped correcting her years ago. Patricia's twin daughters, Madison and Morgan, were juniors at Riverside Academy, the county's top-performing high school. I'd approved their magnet program funding, signed off on their STEM lab equipment, and sat in on their principal's review. The girls had no idea. The spring showcase was Riverside's biggest event. I'd been invited in my official capacity to observe the engineering program I'd helped fund. The invitation had come to my office, clearly addressed to Laura Chen, District Supervisor of Academic Programs. I RSVP'd through my assistant. I didn't mention it to Patricia. My professional life was better kept separate. But Patricia found out, probably through the school's newsletter. She called 3 days before. You're coming to the girls' showcase? She sounded surprised. I like supporting education initiatives. The girls are excited. Madison's doing robotics and Morgan has chemistry. All their friends will be there. Sounds impressive. About that. Patricia's tone shifted. The girls are a little worried. You know how teenagers are. They asked if maybe you could keep a low profile. Sure. I'll be discreet. The showcase was Thursday evening. I left my office at 5, still in my work clothes. Professional pantsuit, heels, district ID badge on a lanyard. I drove to Riverside, the school where I'd spent countless hours in administrative meetings. The parking lot was packed. I found a spot and walked toward the main entrance. Madison appeared halfway there with Morgan behind her. Aunt Laura, you made it. I wouldn't miss it. So there's a thing. Madison exchanged a glance with Morgan. The front entrance is really crowded. They're asking some people to use alternate entrances. I can wait. No. It's better if you use the service entrance. It's actually closer to the exhibits. I looked at them carefully. Morgan was shifting nervously. Madison's jaw was set. You want me to use the staff entrance? It's just easier. Plus, all our friends are here, and if they see us with you, they'll want to meet you, and we'll have to explain, and it's awkward. Explain what? Madison flushed. That you're our aunt, who works at a school. They'll ask questions. Use the back door, Morgan added quietly. Please? We don't want our friends thinking we brought school staff as guests. Patricia appeared then. Girls, I told you I'd handle this. She turned to me with an apologetic smile. Laura, would you mind using the south entrance? The one staff uses. Much less chaotic. This crowd is mostly administration and successful parents. Might not be your scene. I stood there in my professional suit, wearing my district supervisor badge, looking at my sister and her daughters, who wanted me to use the service entrance because they were embarrassed. The custodial entrance, I repeated. Don't make it a thing. The girls just want their night to go smoothly. I could have corrected them. Could have turned my badge around. Could have mentioned I'd be sitting with school board members. Instead, I smiled. Of course. Where's this entrance? Relief flooded their faces. Madison pointed. Around that way. Door marked staff only. You can pretend you're a janitor or something, Morgan added nervously. Just until you get inside. Patricia squeezed my arm. Thanks for understanding. They hurried to the main entrance. I watched them disappear, then walked around the building. The staff entrance was exactly where Madison said it would be. I'd used it dozens of times during administrative visits. I badged in, the electronic lock recognizing my credentials, and stepped into the familiar corridor. The hallway was lined with photographs and plaques documenting Riverside's achievements. I walked slowly, observing what I'd seen many times before, but never quite like this. There was the plaque commemorating the school's National Blue Ribbon Award. There was the photo from the STEM lab dedication I'd attended. And there, in a frame between the science wing and the main corridor, was a photograph from last year's district leadership conference. Front and center, me, shaking hands with the superintendent, accepting recognition for innovative curriculum development. The plaque below read, Laura Chen, District Supervisor of Academic Programs. Excellence in Educational Leadership. I paused in front of it, remembering that day. Then I continued down the corridor, past the custodial closets and storage rooms, through the doors that led to the main building. The showcase was set up in the gymnasium and surrounding classrooms. I entered quietly, noting the VIP section near the stage where I was supposed to sit. Instead, I hung back near the entrance, observing from a distance. Madison's robotics demonstration was impressive. Morgan's chemistry presentation showed genuine understanding. I felt proud of them despite everything. They were bright, capable students in a school that provided excellent opportunities I'd helped create and fund. I stayed for an hour, then slipped out before the closing remarks. In my car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder for tomorrow's meeting, 9:00 a.m. Riverside Academy, Principal's Office, Quarterly Program Review. The next morning, I dressed carefully in a gray suit and took my time with coffee. My assistant had prepared the review documents, including the updated budget allocations that required the principal's approval and my signature. I arrived at Riverside at 8:45, parking in my designated spot near the administrative offices. The building was familiar, comfortable. I'd been coming here for 3 years in my supervisory capacity. Dr. Martinez was already in her office when I arrived. Laura, Thank you for coming. I wanted to apologize again for missing you at the showcase last night. I got pulled into a parent emergency right when you were supposed to arrive. No problem. I observed from the back. The programs look excellent. Thanks to your advocacy for our funding, she pulled out a folder. I wanted to discuss the continuation of the engineering program for next year. We spent an hour reviewing budgets, enrollment numbers, and program outcomes. Dr. Martinez needed my approval for several initiatives, which I granted after ensuring they met district standards. Before you go, she said as we finished, I wanted to mention something. Madison and Morgan Thompson's mother called this morning asking about you. I looked up from my papers. Patricia called. She wanted to know if I knew why you'd been at the showcase. She seemed surprised you'd attended. I explained that you were there in your official capacity as district supervisor, that we'd specifically invited you to observe the engineering program. Dr. Martinez paused. She seemed shocked, said something about thinking you were a teacher's aide. I work in education, I said mildly. It's a common misunderstanding. She asked if I could have you call her. Said it was urgent, something about her daughters needing to speak with you. I finished gathering my materials. I'll reach out when I have time. Back in my office at the district building, I found 3 voicemails from Patricia, each increasingly frantic. 2 texts from Madison, 1 from Morgan. All said essentially the same thing. We need to talk. Please call. It's important. I didn't call back immediately. Instead, I worked through my afternoon meetings, reviewed curriculum proposals, and had a productive discussion with the superintendent about next year's budget priorities. At 4 o'clock, I finally called Patricia. Laura, she sounded breathless. Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you all day. Dr. Martinez called me this morning. She said you're the district supervisor? That you oversee all the county schools. That's correct. Why didn't you tell me? You never asked. Silence. Then, the girls are mortified. Laura, they made you use the service entrance. They told you to pretend to be a janitor. And the whole time, you were there in some official capacity. I was invited to observe the engineering program. I approved its funding. Oh my God. Patricia's voice dropped. You fund their programs. You have authority over their school. I'm the district supervisor. I oversee academic programs at all county schools, including Riverside. The girls saw the photo in the hallway this morning, the one from that award ceremony. They realized you walked right past your own picture when they made you use that entrance. I didn't respond. Laura, they feel terrible. They didn't know. If they'd known who you were. Would it have mattered? I asked quietly. Should people only be treated with respect if they hold important titles? Another silence. That's not what I mean. Patricia, you told me to use the custodial entrance because you assumed I was insignificant enough that it wouldn't matter. Your daughters suggested I pretend to be a janitor because they were embarrassed by me. Not because of who I am, but because of who you all assumed I was. We made a mistake. You made an assumption. There's a difference. What can we do? The girls want to apologize properly. They can apologize if they want to, but understand something. I would have used that entrance regardless of my title if you'd asked respectfully. The problem wasn't the entrance, it was the contempt behind why you asked me to use it. I heard Patricia breathe shakily. Dr. Martinez mentioned you'd be back next month for another review. I have quarterly reviews at all my schools, Riverside included. So you'll see the girls. I'll see all the students. That's part of my job. Laura, please don't hold this against them professionally. They're academics. Patricia, I cut her off firmly. I would never let personal matters affect my professional judgment. The girls are excellent students in a strong program. That won't change. But don't insult me by suggesting I'd punish teenagers for their mother's assumptions about my career. I didn't mean. I know what you meant. You meant that now that you know I have authority, you're worried about consequences. But you weren't worried about consequences when you thought I was nobody important. I heard her crying softly. I'm sorry, I really am. I believe you're sorry you were wrong about my position. I'm less certain you're sorry about how you treated me when you thought I was right. After we hung up, I sat at my desk looking out over the district office complex. My assistant knocked and entered with next month's schedule. You have Riverside Academy on the 15th, she said. Principal evaluation and program review. I remember. Also, there's a request here from Madison and Morgan Thompson. They're asking if they could meet with you before the official visit. They submitted it through proper channels, requested it as student representatives wanting to discuss program feedback. I looked at the formal request form, properly filled out and submitted through the school's official process. They'd done it right, professionally, the way students were supposed to request meetings with district administrators. Schedule it, I said, 30 minutes before the principal review. 2 weeks later, I returned to Riverside Academy. Madison and Morgan were waiting in the conference room, both looking nervous in their school uniforms. They stood when I entered. "Thank you for meeting with us," Madison said formally. "We know you're busy." I sat down, setting my briefcase aside. "You requested this meeting. What did you want to discuss?" "We wanted to apologize," Morgan said. "Really apologize. Not just because you're the district supervisor, but because what we did was wrong, regardless of who you are. We were embarrassed by you," Madison continued. "Not because of anything you did, but because we built this story in our heads that you weren't successful. Mom always talked about you like you were struggling, and we just accepted it. We never asked about your actual job," Morgan added. "We just assumed, and then we treated you terribly based on that assumption." They both looked miserable, genuinely ashamed. I let the silence sit for a moment. "What you did hurt," I said finally. "Not because you made me use a different entrance, but because you made it clear you valued status over respect, that you'd only treat someone well if they seemed important enough." "We know," Madison whispered. "We're learning that now. The person you told to pretend to be a janitor, she helped fund your STEM lab. She approved your robotics program. She advocated for resources that benefit your education. But even if she hadn't, she still deserved basic courtesy." "We understand that now," Morgan said. "And we're sorry, really, truly sorry." I looked at these two teenagers who were learning a hard lesson about assumptions and respect. Apology accepted. "Now, you mentioned wanting to discuss program feedback." Their faces showed surprise that I was moving forward professionally. Madison recovered first, pulling out a notebook. "We wanted to suggest some improvements to the engineering curriculum. We have ideas about practical applications." We spent 20 minutes discussing their thoughtful suggestions. They were smart, engaged students with legitimate insights. When we finished, I gathered my materials. "Those are good recommendations. I'll discuss them with Dr. Martinez." "Thank you," they said in unison. At the door, I paused. "For what it's worth, your mother called me. She's upset about what happened." "She should be," Madison said. "She taught us to judge you without knowing you. People make mistakes. What matters is what you do after." I adjusted my briefcase. "You both have bright futures. Don't waste them on assumptions about other people's worth." After they left, Dr. Martinez came in for our scheduled review. She mentioned that the Thompson girls had been different lately, more thoughtful, asking more questions about people's backgrounds before making judgments. "Whatever happened at the showcase," she said, "it seems to have taught them something valuable." "Sometimes education happens outside the classroom," I said. That evening, Patricia texted me. "The girls said their meeting went well. Thank you for treating them professionally despite everything." I replied simply, "That's my job." She wrote back after a pause. "I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I should have said that years ago." "Yes," I typed back, "you should have." But it was a start, not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. Recognition not just of my title, but of the years I'd spent building the career while my family assumed I was going nowhere. The next time there was a family gathering, Patricia introduced me differently. "This is my sister, Laura. She's the district supervisor of academic programs. She oversees all the county schools." It shouldn't have mattered. My work had value whether my family recognized it or not. But hearing my sister finally acknowledge it, and seeing my nieces understand what I actually did, it meant something. Not because titles matter most, but because being seen accurately matters. Being known for who you actually are, not who people assume you to be. And sometimes it takes walking through a service entrance past your own achievements to show people the difference between how they treat someone and how they should. The invitation said casual family barbecue, so I wore jeans, brought potato salad, and arrived at my sister Monica's house around 2 in the afternoon. The backyard was full of relatives, kids running around the pool, adults clustered near the grill with drinks in hand. "Jen." Monica waved me over, already 3 drinks and based on her volume. "About time. Food's on that table." Her kids were in the pool, Ashley, 16, Connor, 14, and Zoe, 12. They'd always been energetic, but lately there was an edge to their behavior around me. Monica had been telling them stories about my life and my choices, framing me as the cautionary tale of what happens when you don't get married or have kids. I set my potato salad on the table next to 17 other dishes and grabbed a water bottle. My phone was in my back pocket, my wallet in my purse on a lawn chair, standard family gathering setup. The afternoon progressed normally enough. I talked with my aunt, helped my father flip burgers, and avoided Monica's increasingly loud commentary about everyone's life choices. Around 4:30, I was standing near the pool talking to my cousin David when I felt hands on my back. The push was hard and unexpected. I hit the water fully clothed, my phone still in my pocket, going under immediately. The shock of cold water, the weight of my jeans, the disorientation of being suddenly submerged, it all hit at once. I surfaced, gasping, and heard laughter. Ashley was at the pool's edge with Connor and Zoe, all three of them doubled over. Ashley was holding up her phone, recording. "Look at her, like garbage," Connor yelled, and the other kids joined in laughing. I swam toward the ladder, my waterlogged jeans making it difficult. My phone was definitely ruined. My blouse clung to me, and I could feel my wallet heavy with soaked cash. "Don't help her out, let her struggle." That was Monica's voice, sharp and clear. I looked up. My cousin David had reached out to help me, but Monica was pulling his arm back. She was laughing, gesturing to the kids to keep filming. "Monica, this isn't funny," David said, but she waved him off. "Oh, come on. It's just water. Jen needs to lighten up anyway." I reached the ladder and climbed out, water pouring off me and creating a puddle on the concrete. My phone was dead weight in my pocket. My nice blouse was ruined. My jeans stuck to my legs uncomfortably. Every adult in the yard was watching, some laughing. I looked through the peephole and saw Ashley, Connor, and Zoe on my porch. Ashley was still in her party clothes from the evening, makeup smeared. Connor looked scared. Zoe was crying. I opened the door. "Aunt Jen, please. We need help." Ashley's voice was shaking, nothing like the confident mockery from 8 hours earlier. "What's wrong?" "We're stranded. We were at a party, and everyone left, and our rides fell through. And Mom's not answering her phone, and Dad's drunk at home. And we didn't know who else to call." "You called me?" "We couldn't. Your phone's been off. We walked here. It took 2 hours." They'd walked 2 hours at 3 in the morning to get to my apartment. I looked at them more carefully. Zoe's shoes were wrong for walking. Her feet blistered. Connor had a tear in his shirt. Ashley looked exhausted and frightened. Where was this party? "Across town, near the industrial area. It got really bad, Aunt Jen. There were older guys there, and they started getting aggressive, and everyone just left. We were scared to stay, but we had no way to get home." "Where's your mother now?" "I don't know. She's not answering. We called like 30 times. And your father?" Ashley looked ashamed. "He's home, but he's been drinking since the barbecue. He can't drive. He barely answered when we called." I stood there looking at these 3 kids who'd pushed me into a pool, filmed me struggling, called me garbage, whose mother had prevented anyone from helping me. Now they were on my doorstep at 5 in the morning because they had nowhere else to go. "Come inside," I said finally. They filed in quietly, suddenly docile. I pointed to the couch. "Sit." While they sat, I went to my bedroom and changed into proper clothes. Then I came back and looked at them, really looked at them. Zoe was still crying silently. Connor couldn't meet my eyes. Ashley looked like she wanted to disappear. "First," I said quietly, "tell me about this party. Everything. If there's something dangerous happening, I need to know." Ashley explained haltingly. "A friend's older brother's party. They'd lied to Monica about where they were going. Things had escalated, people drinking heavily, someone bringing drugs, fights breaking out. Their rides had left without them. They'd been too scared to stay but had no way home." "Did anyone hurt you?" "No," Ashley said quickly. "We left before it got that bad. But we were scared, really scared." "And you walked here from the industrial district?" "We didn't have money for an Uber. Mom hasn't given us our allowance, and your apartment was closer than home. 2 hours walking through dark streets at 3 in the morning. They could have been hurt, picked up, worse. Because they had no other options and I lived closer." "Why didn't you call the police?" Zoe finally spoke, her voice small. "We were scared we'd get in trouble for lying about where we were." I sat down in the chair across from them. "Let me make sure I understand. 8 hours ago, you 3 pushed me into a pool, filmed me struggling, called me garbage, and your mother prevented anyone from helping me. Now you show up at my door at 5 in the morning expecting me to rescue you." The silence was heavy. "I'm sorry," Ashley whispered. "We're really sorry. What we did was awful. I deleted the video. I know that doesn't make it better, but I felt terrible after you left. Did you? I asked. Or do you feel terrible now because you need something from me? Both, she admitted. I felt bad then, but I didn't know how to say it with everyone watching. And I feel worse now because you'd have every right to turn us away. But we had no one else. Your mother hasn't answered her phone since 10. We've called 40 times. We even tried Dad's friends. No one's answering. I pulled out my laptop since my phone was still dead. Give me your mother's number. Ashley recited it, and I tried calling from my computer. Straight to voicemail. I tried 4 more times. Nothing. What about your dad? Is he safe alone? He's passed out on the couch. He does this sometimes. He'll be fine in the morning, just hungover. There it was, the family secret casually revealed. Monica's husband had a drinking problem. Monica herself was unreachable when her children needed her. And these 3 kids had learned to navigate adult problems without adequate support. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You 3 are going to sleep here for a few hours. Zoe, you can have my bed. Ashley and Connor, there are blankets in the closet for the couch. At 8, I'll drive you home. We're going to have a conversation with your mother about tonight. All of it. Please don't tell her about the party, Connor said quickly. She'll cuss. Your mother needs to know you were in danger, that you walked 2 hours through dark streets because you couldn't reach her, that you lied about your location. All of it. She's going to ground us forever, Zoe said miserably. That's between you and her, but she needs to know her kids were scared, and she was unreachable. I set them up with blankets and pillows. Zoe curled up in my bed immediately, asleep within minutes. Ashley and Connor whispered on the couch for a while before exhaustion took them too. I stayed up, watching the sunrise, thinking about choices, consequences, and the strange math of family obligation. At 8, I woke them. They were groggy, embarrassed in the morning light. I made toast and scrambled eggs because feeding them seemed important. They ate silently, no one meeting my eyes. In the car, I said when they finished. The drive to Monica's house took 20 minutes. Her car was in the driveway. I rang the doorbell repeatedly until she answered, clearly just waking up, her phone dead on her nightstand. Jen? What are you? Why are my kids here? We need to talk. All of us. I walked in without waiting for permission. The kids followed, and Monica, confused and defensive, trailed behind. In her living room, with her husband still asleep on the couch exactly as the kids had described, I laid it out. The party, the danger, the 2-hour walk, the dozens of unanswered calls, my doorstep at 5 in the morning. Monica's face went through several emotions: confusion, anger, fear, defensiveness. Why didn't you call me? She demanded of her kids. We did, Ashley said. 40 times. Your phone was dead. Why didn't you tell me about the party in the first place? Because you wouldn't have let us go, Connor said. Exactly, because it was dangerous. Monica was working herself up. You lied to me, put yourselves at risk. And when they needed help, I interrupted quietly. They couldn't reach you. They walked 2 hours through dark streets because they had no other option. Monica turned on me. You could have called me. With what phone? The one that stopped working when your kids pushed me in the pool and you laughed? She had the grace to look embarrassed. That was just fun. Kids being kids. It was assault. It was filmed. It was humiliating. And you prevented people from helping me. You're being dramatic. Am I? Your kids showed up on my doorstep at 5 in the morning because they were scared and had nowhere else to go. After spending yesterday treating me like garbage. Do you see the irony? Monica looked at her kids, who were all studying the floor. Is this true? You went to Jen after what you did. She was the only one who answered, Ashley said quietly. The only one we could reach. We knew she'd help even though we didn't deserve it. Why would you think that? Because Aunt Jen's reliable, Zoe said. She's always been reliable, even when we're mean to her. I stood up. Here's what I need to say. Yesterday was unacceptable. You participated in humiliating me, Monica. You taught your kids that cruelty is funny, and then, when they needed help, you were unreachable, and they came to the person they just abused. I said I'm sorry about the pool. No, you didn't. You haven't apologized once. You called me dramatic. I looked at the kids. You 3 apologized. You acknowledged what you did was wrong. Your mother hasn't. Monica's face flushed. Fine, I'm sorry. It was inappropriate. I had too much to drink. That's not an apology, that's an excuse. We stared at each other, years of tension crystallizing in this moment. Your kids were in real danger last night, I said finally. They made bad choices, yes. But they're kids. You're the adult who was supposed to be reachable. Instead, I was. I headed for the door, then turned back. Ashley, Connor, Zoe, you're welcome to reach out if you need actual help. Not rides from parties you lied about attending, but real emergencies. I'll be there. But the mockery stops. The filming stops. The cruelty stops. Understood. They nodded. Monica, charge your phone. Know where your kids are. Be reachable. Because next time they're scared and alone, I might not be available. And then what? I left before she could respond. In my car, driving home, my phone still dead, my blouse ruined, my dignity somewhat restored. I thought about reliability and how it's often thankless until it's desperately needed. 2 days later, after I'd gotten a new phone, I received a text from Ashley. The video was deleted before I ever posted it. I know that doesn't fix what we did, but I wanted you to know. Also, Mom charged her phone and set up alerts so she never misses our calls. And she apologized to Dad about yesterday, but that's complicated. Thank you for helping us. We didn't deserve it. I didn't respond immediately. I just sat with the message, considering whether their fear had taught them empathy or just caution. Finally, I typed back. Everyone deserves help when they're scared. But respect has to be earned back. Work on that. 3 dots appeared, then, we will, I promise. Whether they keep that promise remained to be seen. But at least now they understood that the person they treated like garbage was the same person who'd answered the door at 5 in the morning. And maybe that was worth something. The box was wrapped in cheerful graduation paper, blue and gold, with little mortar boards printed across it. It was tied with a silver ribbon. It looked expensive, thoughtful, like the kind of gift you plan weeks in advance. I was 22 years old, standing in my parents' backyard surrounded by aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends who had come to celebrate my college graduation. Pre-med degree with honors. Medical school acceptance letter already framed in my dorm room. Admission to Johns Hopkins with a partial scholarship. 4 years of brutal organic chemistry, physics, biology labs, volunteering at hospitals, and studying until 3 in the morning. All of it culminating in this moment. My father handed me the box with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. There was something performative about it, like he was setting up a joke only he found funny. Open it, Anna. Your real graduation present. I tore through the paper while everyone watched. The backyard had gone quiet, that expectant silence when everyone's waiting to see what someone received. I lifted the lid. Inside was a collection of cleaning supplies, spray bottles with bright yellow labels, microfiber rags in multiple colors, rubber gloves in size medium, a small mop head still wrapped in plastic, a scrub brush, and a bottle of industrial-strength floor cleaner. The scent of artificial lemon wafted up, sharp and chemical. The backyard went completely silent. Start practicing, my father said loudly enough for everyone to hear. This is your career, your real career. David, my mother said softly, that's not funny. I'm not joking. Medical school is expensive. She'll last 1 semester before she drops out. Better she learns a practical skill now. Cleaning is honest work. My Uncle Thomas laughed nervously. Come on, David, that's harsh, even for you. I'm being realistic. Anna's not doctor material. Too emotional. Not tough enough. She thinks she can handle medical school because she got good grades. But college isn't real life. I stood there holding a spray bottle in one hand and a rag in the other while my extended family watched my humiliation. Medical school costs $200,000, my father continued. She'll waste 1 year, drop out, and be in debt for the rest of her life. At least with cleaning skills, she can get a job. I start medical school in August, I said quietly. I've already been accepted. Acceptance and finishing are different things. You'll see, this will be more useful than that acceptance letter. I put the cleaning supplies back in the box and closed the lid. Thank you for the gift. My mother followed me inside when I left. He doesn't mean it. He's just worried about the money. He means it, Mom. He's always meant it. Give him time. When you graduate from medical school, he'll understand. I won't be inviting him to that graduation. I moved to the East Coast 2 months later for medical school. Changed my phone number. Sent my mother my address, but not my father. For the next 12 years, I saw him occasionally at Christmas, and we barely spoke. He never asked about medical school. Never asked about my residency. Never asked about my career at all. I assumed he thought I'd dropped out. Maybe become a nurse, maybe actually taken his advice and gotten a job cleaning offices. My mother mentioned once that he told someone at church I was doing something with hospitals in Boston, in a vague tone that suggested failure he was too polite to specify. I didn't correct him. I was too busy becoming a doctor. Medical school was brutal in ways my father had never imagined. 100-hour weeks learning anatomy, pharmacology, and pathology. Memorizing every bone, every nerve pathway, every drug interaction. Constant exams where one wrong answer could mean the difference between passing and failing out. The pressure of knowing that mistakes in this field cost lives, not just grades. I finished top of my class, inducted into the Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Medical Society. Matched into a prestigious general surgery residency program at University Hospital, one of the most competitive in the country. 5 years of residency were even harder than medical school, 80 to 100-hour weeks, sleeping 4 hours a night if I was lucky, learning to make split-second decisions in the operating room. Holding people's lives in my hands while attending surgeons watched and judged. I specialized in cardiothoracic surgery during my final years, drawn to the heart and lungs, the most demanding and technically difficult field in surgery. 2 years of fellowship after that at Massachusetts General, becoming an expert, learning advanced techniques that most surgeons never master, publishing research on minimally invasive cardiac procedures, building a reputation among the small community of cardiothoracic surgeons in the Northeast. At 33, I became an attending surgeon. At 35, the hospital appointed me chief of surgery, the youngest in the institution's 120-year history. I oversaw 40 surgeons and 200 support staff. My department's annual budget was $80 million. My father knew none of this. He knew I had moved away, that I was doing something in Boston. My mother mentioned occasionally that I was still in medicine somehow, but she was vague about details because I'd asked her to be. My father never pressed for specifics. I assumed he didn't care enough to ask. Then his heart stopped working properly. Massive myocardial infarction on a Tuesday morning. His second wife called an ambulance. They brought him to University Hospital because it was the closest major cardiac center. I didn't know he was there until I reviewed the surgical schedule Wednesday morning and saw his name. David Morrison, age 67. Acute coronary syndrome requiring urgent coronary artery bypass grafting. High-risk patient due to age and extent of blockage. Consulting surgeon requested chief of surgery review. My father needed open heart surgery at my hospital, in my department. I sat in my office for 10 minutes staring at his chart. I could assign the case to another surgeon and never see him. That would be easier. But I was chief of surgery. Complex, high-risk cases required my consultation. It was my job. I put on my white coat and walked to the cardiac intensive care unit. My father was awake, propped up on pillows, an oxygen cannula in his nose. His second wife sat beside the bed. He looked older than I remembered, grayer, thinner, fragile in a way I never associated with him. I knocked on the doorframe. "Mr. Morrison? I'm Dr. Morrison, chief of surgery. I'm here to consult on your case." His wife looked up first, confused. "Morrison? Are you related?" My father turned his head, looked at me. His eyes widened. "Anna? Hello, Dad. You're a doctor?" "I'm the chief of surgery. I oversee all surgical departments in this hospital." His wife stood up. "You're David's daughter? He said you lived in Boston, but he didn't mention. We haven't spoken much in the past 12 years." I pulled up a chair and opened his chart on my tablet. "Let's discuss your medical situation. You've had a severe heart attack. 3 of your coronary arteries are significantly blocked. You need coronary artery bypass grafting, CABG surgery. We'll take vessels from your leg and use them to bypass the blockages." "Is it dangerous?" His voice was weak. "All surgery carries risk. In your case, the risk of not operating is higher than the risk of the procedure. Without surgery, you'll likely have another heart attack within weeks, fatal this time." "Will you do the surgery?" "Dr. Kumar will be your primary surgeon. He's an excellent cardiothoracic surgeon, one of the best in the country. I'll be supervising and available during the procedure." "You're really a doctor." He said it like he was still processing. "Chief of surgery. I've held this position for 2 years." His wife looked between us. "David, you never said your daughter was a surgeon." "I didn't know." I stood up. Someone from Dr. Kumar's team will be by this afternoon to explain the procedure in detail. Surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Do you have any questions? How did this happen? Medical school, surgery, chief of surgery. You're 35 years old. 35 and 3 months. I graduated medical school at 26, finished residency at 31, fellowship at 33. I've published 23 papers and received grants totaling $2.3 million for cardiac surgery research. My father stared at me. I thought you dropped out. You hoped I'd drop out. It would have proven you right. I checked my watch. I have a meeting. Dr. Kumar will take excellent care of you. I left before he could say anything else. The surgery the next morning took 4 hours. I watched from the observation gallery. Dr. Kumar's hands were steady, his technique flawless. My father's heart stopped, then started again on bypass. The grafts went in cleanly. The heart resumed beating on its own. Textbook procedure. Recovery was slower. My father was older, his body struggling to heal. I checked on him during rounds because it was my job, not because I wanted to. Professional obligation overruled personal history. On the 3rd day post-op, I found him awake and alert. Your recovery is progressing normally, I told him, reviewing his vitals. We'll have you up walking today. Can we talk, not as doctor and patient, as father and daughter? We can talk as doctor and patient. That's the relationship we have. Anna, please. I was wrong. About medical school, about your career. I should have supported you. You should have, but you didn't. The cleaning rags, that was cruel. I see that now. It was cruel then too. You just didn't care. I was trying to protect you. Medical school is hard. I didn't want you to fail. So you made sure I knew you expected me to fail. That's not protection. That's sabotage. His hands twisted the blanket. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't erase 12 years. Sorry doesn't erase standing in front of 30 people while you told them I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor. I was wrong. Being wrong isn't the same as being sorry, and being sorry isn't the same as earning forgiveness. I closed his chart. Your cardiac function is improving. You'll be discharged in 3 days. Cardiac rehabilitation starts 2 weeks after that. Your cardiologist will monitor you. Will I see you again? If you have surgical complications requiring readmission to this hospital, yes. I left before he could respond. My mother called that evening. Anna, I heard about your father's surgery. Thank you for taking care of him. I did my job. Any patient would receive the same care. He told me about the conversation, about the apology. Apologies are easy. Change is hard. He wants to make things right. He's had 12 years to make things right. He never tried. Maybe almost dying changed his perspective. Maybe. But that doesn't obligate me to change mine. My father was discharged 4 days post-op. I saw him once more, providing discharge instructions. He asked if we could have coffee sometime. I said I'd think about it. I didn't mean it. 6 months later, I was invited to present research at the annual conference of cardiothoracic surgeons. 300 physicians. A presentation on innovative bypass techniques. It was being held in Boston. My mother asked if she could attend. I said yes. She asked if my father could come too. I said he could sit in the audience, but we wouldn't sit together. The presentation went well. Questions from colleagues, interest from other hospitals. Afterwards, there was a reception. My father approached with something in his hands, a small wrapped package. Can I give you something? A real graduation present. 12 years late. I unwrapped it. Inside was an antique medical journal from 1923, leather-bound. Articles about early cardiac surgery techniques. Beautiful illustrations. It probably cost him several $100s. I should have given you something like this instead of cleaning supplies. I should have believed in you. Yes, you should have. Can I be part of your life now? Can we try? I looked at the journal. Thought about the cleaning rags still in a box in my office. I kept them as motivation, a reminder of what I'd proven wrong. We can have coffee occasionally. We'll see where it goes from there. But understand something, Dad. I didn't become chief of surgery to prove you wrong. I became chief of surgery because I was good enough. Your opinion of me never mattered to my career. It only mattered to our relationship. I understand. Do you? Because you never asked. In 12 years, you never once called to ask how medical school was going. Never asked about residency. Never asked anything. You decided I'd failed and never checked to see if you were right. I was ashamed. I thought if you had dropped out, asking would hurt you. So you just assumed the worst. Decided I'd failed without evidence. He had no answer for that. The cleaning rags were insulting, I continued. But the real damage was that you wrote me off. Decided my future without asking me about it. That's what I can't forgive easily. How do I fix it? Time. Consistency. Actually being interested in my life. Not just now that you know I succeeded, but genuinely interested. We did have coffee, monthly at first, then more regularly. He came to my award ceremony when I received the Hospital Excellence in Leadership Award. He asked questions about my research, started trying to understand the daughter he dismissed. 2 years after his surgery, he visited my office at the hospital and saw the box of cleaning supplies on my shelf. You kept those. I kept them to remember. You gave me rags and told me to clean. I run an $80 million surgery department. I clean operating rooms, just not the way you meant. I was a fool. Yes, but you're trying to be better. That counts for something. It counted for coffee dates. For awkward family dinners where we rebuilt something that looked vaguely like a relationship. For a kind of peace that wasn't forgiveness, but wasn't hatred either. He never met my expectations of a supportive father, but he stopped actively undermining me. For someone who'd started at negative, that was almost progress. The cleaning rags stayed on my shelf, reminders of where I'd come from. Proof that someone else's opinion of your potential means nothing if you refuse to accept their limits. My father gave me rags and said that was my career. I became chief of surgery and said that was his mistake. Both things were true. Only one of us was right. The doorbell rang at 6:30 on a Tuesday evening. I was helping Sophie with her algebra homework at the kitchen table. She was 13 now, all long limbs and braces, struggling with polynomials the way I once did. 8 years had passed since her mother dropped her off at my apartment for just a weekend and never came back. I'll get it, I said, thinking it might be our neighbor returning the ladder I'd lent her. I opened the door to find my sister Melissa standing on my porch. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was dyed an aggressive shade of red. A man I didn't recognize stood beside her, sleeve tattoos visible under his leather jacket. Claire, Melissa said, like we'd seen each other last week instead of 8 years ago. Like she hadn't disappeared without explanation, without a phone call, without a single birthday card. We need to talk. Mom. Sophie's voice came from behind me, small and uncertain. She'd stopped calling Melissa Mom around age 7, when she finally accepted that her mother wasn't coming back. Now she called me that, though I'd never asked her to. It had happened naturally, gradually, until one day it just was. Baby girl. Melissa moved forward like she was going to rush past me, arms outstretched in a performance of maternal affection. I blocked the doorway with my body, keeping my stance casual but firm. Look how big you are. I've missed you so much. You're practically grown up now. Sophie didn't move from her position halfway between the kitchen and front door. Her face had gone pale, the color draining from her cheeks the way it did when she had panic attacks. I could see her starting to breathe faster. What do you want, Melissa? I kept my voice level. What do I want? I want to see my daughter. It's been too long. I'm here to take her home. The man beside her nodded. We've got a place set up for her. 2-bedroom apartment. She'll have her own room. And you are? I asked. Derek, Melissa's fiancé, soon to be Sophie's stepdad. He smiled like this was good news. Sophie's hand found mine. Her fingers were cold. This isn't a good time, I said. Sophie has school tomorrow. Homework to finish. I'm her mother, Claire. You can't keep her from me. Melissa's voice took on an edge I remembered from childhood. The tone that preceded tantrums, manipulation, threats. You haven't seen her in 8 years. I was getting my life together. I had problems. I'm better now. Clean and sober 2 years. She pulled out her phone. I've got documentation. Court-ordered rehab completion certificates. I'm ready to be your mom again. That's great, Melissa, really. But Sophie has a life here. Friends, school, stability. You can't just show up and take her. Actually, I can. I'm her biological mother. I never signed away my rights. Legally, she's mine. Melissa crossed her arms. I talked to a lawyer. You're just her aunt. You've got no legal standing. My heart started pounding, but I kept my face neutral. We should discuss this properly. Not on the doorstep. Give me your number and I'll call you tomorrow. No. I want my daughter back now, tonight. Sophie's grip on my hand tightened. I don't want to go. Sweetie, I know it's a lot, Melissa said in what I suppose was meant to be a soothing voice. But I'm your real mom. We're your real family. Derek and I are going to give you everything you deserve. Everything she deserves? I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. Where were you when she had nightmares every night for 6 months? When she started first grade? When she learned to ride a bike? When she broke her arm falling off the monkey bars? I was sick, Claire. Addiction is a disease. And abandonment is a choice. You didn't call once, not on her birthday, not on Christmas, not ever. Derek stepped forward. Look, we're not trying to cause problems. But Melissa has rights. Sophie belongs with her real family. I am her real family, I said quietly. I'm the one who's been here. For now, Melissa said. But I'm taking her back. One way or another. After they left, Sophie cried for an hour. I held her on the couch, promising her what I'd promised 8 years ago. I would keep her safe. But Melissa's words haunted me. Biological mother. Legal rights. I'd never formally adopted Sophie. I'd assumed Melissa was gone forever, that her absence was permanent. I'd gotten guardianship through the family court, but guardianship wasn't adoption. Guardianship could be challenged. I called my lawyer, Patricia Hoffman, first thing Wednesday morning. How strong is her case? I asked after explaining the situation. Moderate, Patricia said carefully. She's the biological mother. If she can prove she's rehabilitated, stable, and capable of providing care, a court might grant her custody, especially with you only having guardianship. But I've raised Sophie for 8 years. I know, and that matters. But biological parent rights are powerful. We'd have to prove reunification isn't in Sophie's best interest. Patricia paused. There's another option. What? We finalized your adoption of Sophie. You filed the preliminary paperwork 4 years ago, but never completed it. We can move forward now. If you're her legal adoptive parent, Melissa's biological claim becomes much weaker. How long does adoption take? Usually 6 to 12 months, but given the circumstances, we might be able to expedite. Judge Morrison handles these cases. She's reasonable. If Sophie testifies that she wants to stay with you, if we show 8 years of stability versus Melissa's absence, we have a strong case. Do it, I said. File everything. What I didn't tell Patricia yet was the other reason Melissa had returned. The reason I'd been expecting something like this, though I'd hoped I was wrong. 2 months ago, my father had died. He'd been estranged from both Melissa and me for years, disappointed in her addiction and my choice to raise Sophie without his help. But his will had surprised everyone. He'd left his considerable estate in trust for his grandchildren. Sophie was his only grandchild, the only heir to his real estate development fortune. $12 million held in trust until Sophie turned 25. The structure was ironclad, designed by expensive estate lawyers. I was named as trustee, responsible for managing the funds and distributing them for Sophie's education, health, and welfare until she reached maturity. I had no access to the principal for myself. Every expenditure had to be documented and justified. The trust was for Sophie alone. The will had been public record for 6 weeks now, filed with the county probate court, available to anyone who searched the database. It hadn't taken long for people to notice that a 13-year-old girl was suddenly worth $12 million. 6 weeks ago, I'd started receiving strange calls from numbers I didn't recognize. 4 weeks ago, someone tried to friend Sophie on social media using a fake account. 3 weeks ago, Melissa had sent me a single text. We need to talk about Sophie. I'd ignored it. I should have known she wouldn't give up. Thursday afternoon, Patricia called. Melissa filed for custody. Emergency motion. She's claiming you've been keeping Sophie from her, that she's been trying to reconnect for months. That's a lie. I know, we'll prove it. But Claire, there's something else. Her lawyer mentioned the trust fund. They're arguing that Sophie needs her biological mother to help manage her inheritance, that you have a conflict of interest as trustee. There it was, the real reason. They want the money, I said flatly. It appears so. The good news is that makes their case weaker. Judges don't like parents who abandon children and return when money becomes available. The bad news is we need to move fast. I'm filing your adoption petition tomorrow. We'll request an emergency hearing to block Melissa's custody motion until the adoption is resolved. Friday morning, I explained everything to Sophie. She deserved to know. She wants the money Grandpa left you, I said gently. That's why she came back. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. I don't want her money. I don't want Grandpa's money. I just want to stay here with you. You will stay here. I promise. But I need you to be honest with me. Do you want me to adopt you? Legally? So I'm not just your aunt anymore, but your actual mom in the eyes of the law? Her eyes filled with tears. You already are my mom. I know, sweetie. But we need to make it official. There will be a court hearing. A judge will ask you questions. You'll have to tell them what you want. I want to stay with you. Forever. Then that's what we'll fight for. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following Wednesday. Judge Morrison, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor, listened to both sides. Melissa's lawyer argued rehabilitation, maternal rights, biological bonds. He painted me as an aunt who'd overstepped, who was trying to replace Sophie's real mother, who had a financial interest in keeping Sophie away from Melissa. Patricia presented 8 years of documentation, school records listing me as guardian, medical records showing me as emergency contact, bank statements proving I paid for everything, Sophie's therapy records indicating attachment and stability with me, trauma from the abandonment. Then Patricia dropped the evidence that changed everything. Your Honor, we'd like to submit Ms. Melissa Grant's financial records for the past 2 years. Patricia handed documents to the judge. You'll notice she's accumulated significant debt. $87,000 across multiple credit cards and personal loans. She was evicted from 2 apartments in the past year for non-payment of rent. She's currently unemployed and has been for 7 months. Her fiancé Derek Matthews has a criminal record including theft and fraud. She continued, her voice steady and professional. We'd also like to submit phone records, text message logs, and postal service confirmations showing Ms. Grant made no attempt to contact Sophie until 6 weeks ago. That date coincides exactly with the probate of Thomas Grant's will becoming public record. Before she knew about the trust fund, Sophie didn't exist to her. After she learned about $12 million, suddenly she's Mother of the Year. We have documentation of her calling the probate court for trust fund details just 3 days before she appeared at Ms. Whitmer's home. Melissa's face went red. That's not true. I've always loved my daughter. Then where's the proof? Patricia asked calmly. 8 years of silence. No birthday cards. No Christmas presents. No child support. Not one phone call. Ms. Whitmore has receipts for every expense. Can you show the court even one attempt to contact your daughter before you learned she was in Harris? Silence. Judge Morrison looked at Melissa. Ms. Grant, I've heard enough. Your timing is suspicious. Your financial desperation is obvious. Your 8-year absence is inexcusable. This court is not in the business of reuniting children with parents who only want them as assets. She turned to me. Ms. Whitmore, I'm granting your petition for expedited adoption proceedings. I'm also issuing a restraining order preventing Ms. Grant from contacting Sophie until this matter is resolved. We'll have a final hearing in 6 weeks. Melissa stood up. You can't do this. She's my daughter. She was your daughter, Judge Morrison said coldly. You abandoned her. Ms. Whitmore raised her. Now we're going to make that arrangement permanent and legal. Derek grabbed Melissa's arm. What about the money? The trust fund? And there it was, out loud, in front of the judge. Judge Morrison's expression hardened further. The trust fund is managed by Ms. Whitmore as trustee, appointed by the deceased. That has nothing to do with custody. If you're interested in Sophie's welfare, you'd never mention money in a custody hearing. If you're interested in money, you've just proven you shouldn't have custody. She banged her gavel. This hearing is concluded. 6 weeks later, the adoption was finalized. Sophie sat between Patricia and me, holding my hand, as Judge Morrison signed the papers that made me her legal mother. It was a cool October morning, exactly 8 years and 2 months since Melissa had dropped Sophie off for that weekend. Melissa didn't show up to the final hearing. Her lawyer had withdrawn from the case 3 days earlier, citing ethical concerns about her client's motivations. I learned later that Derek had left her too, once he realized there was no money to be gained, no access to the trust fund, no quick payday from reuniting with a child he'd never met. Patricia handed me the adoption certificate, the paper still warm from the court seal. It's official. Sophie Whitmore is legally your daughter. Melissa's parental rights have been terminated. She has no legal standing anymore. The trust fund remains under your sole management as trustee until Sophie turns 25. Sophie smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. That evening, we celebrated with pizza and ice cream. Sophie wanted to watch old home videos, something we did sometimes when she needed comfort. We scrolled through 8 years of memories. Her first day of school. Her dance recitals. Her birthday parties, mornings, summer vacations. Mom, Sophie said during a video of her 8th birthday. She called me that naturally now, no hesitation. Yes, I'm glad she left. I looked at her, surprised. I'm not glad she hurt me. But I'm glad I got to be with you instead. You chose me. She would have just kept me because she had to. I hugged her tight. I'll always choose you. The trust fund sat untouched except for deposits into Sophie's college savings account. I didn't need it. I'd always supported us with my teaching salary. The money would be there when Sophie was 25, when she was old enough to make her own decisions about it. Melissa sent one final text a month later. You poisoned her against me. I blocked the number and deleted it. Because the truth was simple. I hadn't poisoned Sophie against anyone. Melissa had done that herself 8 years ago, when she walked away from a 5-year-old child and never looked back. Some people spend years earning the title of mother. Others abandon it the moment it becomes inconvenient. I'd earned it, day by day, night by night, homework assignment by homework assignment, nightmare by nightmare, scraped knee by scraped knee. And now, finally, legally, it was mine. The trust fund was just money. Sophie was everything.